arrived North Korean artillery units, but in those early morning hours, no one stirred. The temperature hovered at 34 degrees Fahrenheit. The air was heavy, almost frozen, with visibility reduced to under 100 feet due to a thick rolling mist that clung low to the forest floor. To the untrained eye, the terrain appeared undisturbed, a perfect cover. But from above, the stillness betrayed something more. Shapes in the mist, thermal signatures hidden beneath camo netting, and the faint outlines of vehicles tucked beneath frost-covered tree limbs. There were no birds, no wind, no movement, just a looming silence, tense and absolute. Inside the tree canopy, a crew of North Korean artillerymen readied their Koksan M1978 guns, unaware that the sky above had already turned hostile. Then it began. Far above the fog layer, two Ukrainian Su-27 sliced through the sky at 580 miles per hour, hugging the landscape to stay beneath Russian radar. There was no warning, no incoming alert. Just the low, bone-vibrating growl of twin Saturn AL-31 Farad engines breaking the silence like a razor across still water. In that frozen moment before any shot was fired, before any shell was loaded, the countdown had already started. And by the time the crews below looked up, it was far too late. Beneath the dense canopy of frost-coated pines, the newly arrived North Korean artillery battery sat in what Russian planners believed was a secure forward staging zone. The convoy had rolled in less than 12 hours earlier, three massive Koksan M1978 self-propelled guns, each a 170mm behemoth capable of hurling 400-pound shells more than 37 miles, flanked by two fuel and ammo resupply trucks. Around 15 North Korean crewmen worked quietly in the dark, moving crates, checking hydraulics, and adjusting the gun's elevation gears. Camouflage netting, draped from treetop to treetop, broke up the outlines of the vehicles when viewed from above. Makeshift tin and tarp shelters served as weather cover for ammunition stockpiles, while a mobile Russian jamming unit, a repurposed truck with a retractable antenna, hummed faintly near the tree line. Broadcasting interference meant to disrupt incoming UAV feeds. On paper, the position looked prepared. In reality, it was wide open. There were no medium-range radar arrays to scan the skies, no short-range air defense systems to intercept a sudden strike. The site relied entirely on its natural concealment and the false sense of security that came from being 25 miles inside Russian territory. The three Koksans were spaced in a skewed triangle formation about 150 feet apart, intended to reduce the chance of a single strike wiping out the entire battery. The resupply trucks were parked close enough for rapid reloading, but far enough to avoid accidental ignition from a muzzle blast. Fuel drums, high-explosive shells, and spare barrels sat on wooden pallets beneath the netting, their positions memorized by the crews for quick access once the fire orders came. From the ground, it felt like a hidden fortress. From the air, it was nothing more than an exposed artillery cluster dressed in branches and wishful thinking, clearly visible to any surveillance asset with the right sensors. And high above, those sensors had already been watching for 2 full days. From the moment the Laika 100 reconnaissance UAV confirmed the battery's exact position, Ukrainian planners moved fast. The site's lack of radar and short-range air defenses made it vulnerable, but striking this deep inside Russian territory required precision and stealth. 2 upgraded Su-27 flankers were assigned the mission. Stripped of excess weight and fitted with modern navigation and targeting pods, each carried 2 KA-B500SE satellite-guided bombs, optimized for high-altitude release against stationary targets. The pilots knew they couldn't simply fly straight in. Russian ground-based early warning systems, even without local radar, could still detect high-profile aircraft at long ranges if they climbed too high or crossed open airspace. Instead, the Su-27 took the long way in. Flying at treetop level just 150 feet above the ground, they hugged every ridge, river valley, and low-lying stretch of terrain along the border. At 580 miles per hour, their profiles blended with the ground clutter on Russian radar screens, making them virtually invisible until it was too late. Ahead of them, circling at 16,000 feet, the Laika 100 UAV maintained its silent vigil over Belgorod's western forests. Its multispectral sensors fed real-time video and thermal data, through an encrypted, frequency-hopping data link to both the Su-27 second and a forward control station in Sumy. Every detail mattered: exact gun orientation, crew movement, even the subtle heat plume from fuel drums hidden under the netting. The fighters held their position on the Ukrainian side for nearly 4 minutes, using the time to cross-check wind conditions, approach vectors, and release altitudes. The mission clock ticked down quietly. When the final target lock confirmation came through the data link, the pilots eased their throttles forward, skimming over the last tree line. They were still below the horizon of any Russian radar. The artillery crews below, unaware, continued their work. The hunters were already in striking range, waiting only for the order to unleash their payload. The call came in as a single, calm word over the encrypted channel: go. I tip. From 16,000 feet above, the Laika 100 UAV had just captured the decisive moment. The North Korean crew at gun number 1 had begun loading a fresh 170mm round into the breech. Another crewman dragged a fuel hose toward the nearest resupply truck. It was the window Ukrainian planners had been waiting for when the guns were manned, stationary, and at their most vulnerable. The two Su-27 second reacted instantly. Pulling back on their sticks, the pilots yanked the fighters out of low-level terrain following flight into a steep climb. Airspeed bled from 580 miles per hour to just under 400 as they rose above the fog line, breaking into clear pre-dawn skies. In the cockpit, the targeting displays lit up as the aircraft's advanced navigation pods synced with GPS coordinates streaming directly from the UAV. With the climb complete, the lead Su-27 switched on its radar not to search, but to lock suppression modes onto the target area, mapping the ground for optimal bomb release points. The second fighter stayed slightly offset, acting as both strike and overwatch. From this altitude, the entire artillery position came into view, a distorted triangle of heat blooms on the sensor screens. The pilots cross-checked their data one last time: range, wind, altitude, and weapon readiness. The bomb's arming indicators turned solid green. Below, the artillery crews had no idea their final minute had begun. The forest was still. The netting above them swayed gently in the cold air. Then, in one synchronized motion, the Su-27 second banked toward the target, lining up for release. The hunters had broken cover. Now, there was no turning back. The first to release was the lead Su-27. At 9,800 feet, the pilot thumbed the weapon's release, sending two KAB-500SE satellite-guided bombs free from the pylons. Each weapon, weighing over 1,100 pounds, was programmed for an airburst detonation precisely 50 feet above its target. The guidance fins adjusted instantly, steering toward their GPS-marked coordinates. The first bomb struck the kill zone above the nearest resupply truck. The mid-air detonation unleashed a spherical storm of steel fragments, ripping through fuel drums and ammunition crates. The truck's frame twisted in an instant, and the blast chain reacted with the artillery shells stacked beside it, producing a secondary explosion that rolled across the clearing like a shockwave, shattering branches and showering the forest floor with debris. The second bomb drifted just a few yards before aligning perfectly over Coxon gun number 1. The airburst sheared the gun's barrel in half, obliterated its hydraulic elevation system, and tore through the crew. Several were thrown yards from their positions. None survived. The wingman came in seconds later, releasing his own pair. The third bomb angled toward Coxon Goon number 2. It detonated directly over the crew compartment, flipping the 30-ton weapon onto its side and scattering the gun team in a violent spray of shrapnel and soil. The final bomb was aimed at the makeshift ammunition dump, a crude cluster of pallets stacked with high-explosive rounds under a camouflage tarp. The detonation ignited everything at once. The resulting fireball rose hundreds of feet into the air, a towering column of flame visible for miles. In less than 40 seconds from the first release, the entire artillery site had been reduced to twisted steel, burning fuel, and silence. The strike was absolute. When the echoes of the final detonation faded, only the roar of fire remained. Every one of the 3 Coxon M 1978 guns was either destroyed outright or rendered permanently inoperable. Gun number 1 lay in 2 mangled sections, its barrel severed and blackened. Gun number 2 was on its side, tracks blown off, The crew compartment shredded beyond recognition. Gun number 3, though not struck directly, had been caught in the overlapping blast waves and shrapnel from the ammunition dump. Its recoil system fractured and optics shattered. None would ever fire again. Both resupply trucks were burning wrecks. Their fuel tanks had ruptured in the initial blasts, feeding the inferno that now consumed what remained of their frames. The ammunition they carried had cooked off in violent bursts, adding sharp concussive bangs to the steady roar of the flames. The human toll was total. Every member of the roughly 15-man crew was either killed instantly or mortally wounded in the first few seconds of the strike. Those who hadn't been caught in the initial shrapnel storm were thrown by the shock waves or pinned under twisted metal. No radio calls went out. No one made it to cover. The blaze spread quickly, igniting the camouflage netting and wooden ammo pallets, sending sparks spiraling high into the cold night air. Within minutes, the fire had illuminated the surrounding forest for hundreds of yards in every direction, a flickering beacon against the pre-dawn darkness. From the cockpits of the departing Su-27 II, the target area was a swirling mix of orange flame and black smoke columns rising thousands of feet. Below, the artillery site was gone. Nothing but wreckage, heat, and the faint, fading echo of an attack completed in under a minute. From the moment the last column of smoke began to fade, Ukrainian intelligence knew the strike had achieved far more than just the destruction of 3 artillery pieces. This was the 3rd time in just 2 weeks that a North Korean artillery battery, freshly deployed to Russia, had been wiped out within hours of arriving. The pattern was unmistakable and deeply unsettling for Russian planners. For Moscow, the loss wasn't just measured in millions of dollars worth of destroyed equipment. It was a strategic embarrassment. Belgorod, sitting well inside Russian territory, had long been considered a safe staging ground for rear-line assets. Now, the charred remains of the Koksan battery stood as proof that even there, deep behind the front, precision airstrikes could reach with impunity. The message to both Russian and North Korean forces was blunt. Geography offered no immunity. If Ukrainian pilots could penetrate the airspace, strike with surgical accuracy, and vanish before a counterattack, then no safe zone truly existed. The psychological effect rippled quickly. Forward deployed crews became more hesitant to set up in exposed positions. Commanders demanded additional air defenses, radar coverage, and relocation orders, none of which could be implemented overnight. By day's end, orders came down from Russian command to halt any further Koksan deployments in the Belgorod sector, citing unacceptable survivability risks. What had been intended as a show of reinforced firepower had, in less than a minute, become a cautionary tale about the vulnerability of imported artillery in modern warfare. Ukraine hadn't just destroyed a battery, they had shattered the illusion of security behind Russia's own borders. In the end, it wasn't hours of bombardment or waves of attackers that erased the Koksan battery from Belgorod's western forest. It was a single, concentrated strike lasting barely 90 seconds. 3 precision-guided bombs and 2 coordinated releases were all it took to turn a fortified artillery position into twisted steel and scorched earth. The message could not have been clearer. In this war, survival isn't about how deep you are inside friendly territory. It's about whether you've been seen. And once you've been seen, no map line, no camouflage net, no distance from the front will save you. For Russia and its North Korean partners, the Belgorod strike was a blunt reminder that Ukraine's reach isn't measured in miles, it's measured in target coordinates. The Su-27 II didn't linger, didn't circle back, and didn't waste ammunition. They hit what they came to hit, and then they were gone, vanishing into the darkness before the first Russian response could even be launched. By sunrise, the only thing left was the evidence. A massive column of black smoke twisting high into the sky, visible for miles. Beneath it, 3 destroyed guns, the skeletal remains